Historical Reports of Bigfoot Creatures and Wild Men, Episode 33. Bakerville Bottom Beast, Bakerville Bottom, Illinois, 1942. Lepton Harpole reported that he was attacked by a creature about 3 feet tall, covered with brown hair that moved on 2 feet. He had stopped to rest while hunting when the creature sprang out from behind a tree and he beat it off with his shotgun. After 3 unsuccessful attempts to get the upper hand, the creature fled into the bush limping. Other reports of the same or a similar creature in the area compared it in size to a 10-year-old boy, and that it may have been some kind of large monkey with a short tail. Fast forward. 10 days after this event, something killed a dog in the same general area. Tracks found looked like those of a raccoon, but about 4 times larger. A hunt was held, but nothing was found. Yeti observed by group of refugees for 2 hours. Himalayas, 1942. Slavomir Rovich, along with 6 other escapees from a Siberian labor camp, reported a 2-hour-long observation of what appeared to be the mysterious Yeti. The men were making their way to India on foot when they spotted 2 animals of unknown identity far off in a snowfield. They needed food and so seized the opportunity and hurried towards them. When about 100 yards away, they were astonished to see hair-covered creatures about 8 feet tall, one being a few inches taller than the other, that walked on 2 legs. Their heads were squarish on shoulders that sloped sharply down to a powerful chest. Seen in profile, the back of the head was a straight line from the crown into the shoulders. Their arms were very long, making their wrists equal to knee level. They appeared to be covered by 2 distinct kinds of hair. Reddish hair that gave them their characteristic color and forming a tight, close fur against the body, mingled with loose, straight hairs of a slight grayish tinge that hung downwards. The creatures were shuffling quietly around on a flattish shelf below the men's position, blocking descent from the mountain. Rovich stated that they were obviously aware of the group observing them, but apparently had no fear. The men waited for the creatures to go away and leave the way clear, which they eventually did, but without hurrying. Speaking for the group about the experience, Rovich stated, "We decided unanimously that we were examining a type of creature of which we had no previous experience in the wild, in zoos, or in literation." Comment: Rovich and the other 6 prisoners escaped from the labor camp with the aid of the camp commandant's wife in April 1941. They walked 4,000 miles south through the Gobi Desert and over the Himalayas, living off the land until they reached India, where they were rescued by a Gurkha patrol. 3 of the group died during the trek. Rovich's book on his experience, entitled The Long Walk, has been published in more than 25 languages. Hunters confront man-animals in Siskiyou Mountains. Siskiyou Mountains, California, October 1943. O.R. Red Edwards and Bill Cole reported a harrowing experience while hunting in this area. The 2 divided company to circle a bush area. Cole went left and Edwards right. Edwards saw what he thought was an ape-like head above a part of the bush, and then heard the sounds of running feet, culminating in a thud and a grunt. He dashed back to the end of the brush and momentarily saw a man-like creature about 7 feet tall on the run, carrying what appeared to be a man. All he could see were what he thought were legs and shoes extending beyond the creature's cradled arms. Unable to believe his eyes, he started searching for Cole, but could not find him. During the searching, he glimpsed what he believes were 2 more of the same type of creatures. One appeared to be clasping something to its chest, a young one perhaps. He later heard what he described as the damnedest whistling scream that I had ever heard. Unable to find Cole, he returned to their car, where he found his friend waiting for him. Fast forward. The 2 men did not discuss the incident, other than Cole asking Edwards if he had heard an unusual scream, to which he answered in the negative. It appears each man thought he had suffered some form of temporary insanity, and did not want to have it seem that he was crazy. Almost 20 years later, after reading published reports on creatures of the nature he recalled, Edwards contacted Cole and discussed the event. Cole confirmed that the creature had collided with him, but it did not carry him away. The speculation here might be that the man's legs Edwards thought he saw in the creature's arms were those of a young Sasquatch. Comment: it is rather hard to believe that the men did not discuss what happened after being reunited. However, there you have it. This is one of those stories that is too bizarre to be a fabrication. John the Dutchman Meyer succumbs to injuries inflicted by Bushmen. Ruby, Alaska, 1943. John Meyer, commonly known as the Dutchman, died yesterday as a result of injuries he suffered in a confrontation with what Native people refer to as Bushmen, the hair-covered man. The attack occurred at DeWild's camp, about 18 miles down the Yukon River. Meyer was overpowered by the creature, but was spared certain death by his dogs, which drove the attacker away. He managed to make it back to Ruby, where he received medical attention, but it was too late to save him. Fake foot fun. Forestry worker admits to hoaxing. Mount St. Helens, 1944. An employee who worked at a ranger station at Mount St. Helens has come forward admitting that for the last 20 years he had from time to time fabricated large human-like footprints around Spirit Lake. All of the prints were from a model of a right foot. He commenced the hoaxing after prospectors reported that giant ape-like creatures attacked their cabin in what is now Ape Canyon in July 1924. The fact that prints found were all of the same foot aroused suspicion, and it appears this prompted the employee to confess. Yeti sighted, footprint tracings made. Siliguri, West Bengal, India, circa 1944. An engine driver of a goods train reported that he saw a giant-like figure ambling along the railway track just before reaching Siliguri. That same night, a woman reported that a giant Yeti had come to her door, whereupon she immediately shut the door, screamed, and fainted with fright. The next morning, footprints 8 inches wide and 14 to 15 inches long were found in the soft mud at the location. Geisha Champel, a Mongolian lama who happened to be in Siliguri, made exact tracings of the prints. It is possible the tracing was left with the Allahabad Municipal Museum. However, a letter of inquiry on the tracing did not receive a reply. Local chief finds unusual tracks. Swindle Island, British Columbia, April 1945. Chief Tom Brown, a local native, reported that he found huge human-like tracks only minutes old on the beach at Myers Pass. This area has a native name that in English translates to where the apes stay. Beware of the Thing. Stalking mysterious beast near Pottstown, Pennsylvania. Pottstown, Pennsylvania, November 14, 1945. The nocturnal tramp, tramp, tramp of a posse combing the woods of nearby Sheep's Hill for a mysterious beast that makes 20-foot leaps, cries and screams like a baby, and steals chickens is not good for the nerves. Especially, says Mrs. Edward Krieger of Sheep's Hill, to mine. She complains to police that hunting parties trespass across her property and take pot shots at black shadows late at night. Maybe I'll start some shooting myself, she said, if this nonsense doesn't stop. Meantime, the Thing, as residents in the area have tagged the mystery animal, is responsible for 4 casualties among those who have stalked it the past 5 days. Police reported William J. Brandel, 18-year-old Pottstown youth, was struck in the thigh by a pumpkin ball bullet. Betty Hart, 17, of nearby Douglasville, was injured in the left arm by a trigger-nervous posse member, and a young couple, tracking the Thing by auto, were seriously injured when a frightful screech caused the driver to lose control of the car. Variously, it has been described as a panther, a puma, panther and pumas are of the same animal under different names, a wild chow dog, a bear, and a black fox. But until the prowling posse nabs the shrieking beast, it will be just the Thing of Sheep's Hill. Police set bear traps to catch eerie beast. Pottstown, Pennsylvania, November 15, 1945. Police set bear traps around the community of Sheep Hill today in an effort to capture a mysterious beast that stalks the countryside, giving vent to nocturnal, man-sounding screams. County Game Protector Peter Filkowski said residents have been warned by police to keep away from the area. Screams frighten dogs. Human-like tracks found. Cypress River bottom between Kaysen and Pittsburgh, Texas, 1945. Ted McNeil reported he heard unusual screams in this area on 2 occasions that frightened his hunting dogs. On the second occasion, he found barefoot human-like tracks in the area of the sounds that were wide at the front and narrow at the heel. Creature ran off on its hind legs. Near Bridesville, British Columbia, circa 1945. Don Daynard reported that while horseback riding southwest of the Patterson Ranch, he saw an animal sitting on a log. The creature suddenly jumped up and ran off on its hind legs. He said that it ran faster than a man could run. Is Old Yellow Top still around? Cobalt, Ontario, April 16, 1946. A sighting of a strange man-like beast with a light-colored mane, said to roam the wilds here, was reported by a woman and her son while walking the railroad tracks into Cobalt. The woman stated they spotted a dark, hairy animal with a light head ambling off the tracks into the bush near Gillies Lake. Although she did not get a clear look at the oddity, she said that it walked almost like a man. The last official report we have on the creature was published in 1906, when it was given the name Old Yellow Top. Farm manager traps Almasty, but creature escapes. Getmish, Russia, 1946. Mohamed Tomakov, a 39-year-old manager of a state farm in Kabardin, reported he saw an Almasty in a gorge between Zayakova and Kirkazen. His account of the incident is as follows. There was movement in the high wild grass, and when I rode over to have a closer look, there was this ape, an animal I have never seen in my life before. I chased him to a mountain cabin and trapped him inside. There I had a good look at him. His body was just like a man's, but covered with pelt. His face was also like a man's, but much flatter. His forehead was high and curving, his eyebrows sticking out, eyes squinting. His nose was small and flat, and the chin round. He had eye teeth like fangs, sharp and yellow. His hands were small, their palms flat and narrow, long nails on the fingers, but not sharp, and black calluses. His ears were flat and set higher on the head than a man's. It did not have a tail. I noticed it all so well because I made a special point of looking him over carefully. While I was chasing him, he was running on all fours, but whenever he stopped, he rose up on his hind legs. The creature did not speak or scream, but was merely moving his lips and hissing like a cat. I closed the door behind me, it had a latch, and left to get a rope, thinking that the creature would never be able to open it. I was wrong. When I came back, the door was wide open. The creature was gone. Comment. Mohamed Tomakov was indeed a brave man to both chase the creature and then plan on tying it up with a rope. The fact that it broke out of the cabin indicates its strength. Sasquatch lovers seen on Highway 99, Shasta area, California, spring 1947. In spring, a young Sasquatch's fancy? A man and his wife driving through this area think so. The couple stated they spotted a black object on the side of the road as they rounded a curve. Thinking it was a post indicating a washout, they slowed down and stopped close to the object to study the road ahead. All of a sudden, the black object started to cross the road at an angle towards their car, leaving its mate, a second creature, at the original spot. The astonished couple simply waited as the creature came over to their car and looked at them. It then went over to the other side of the road, inspected the bank, and returned to its mate on the other side of the road, which by this time the couple could see was a female. The first creature, the male, took the female by the arm and crossed the road to the spot he had inspected. He then assisted his lady up the bank. She waited until he was also at the top, and the two put an arm around each other and walked about 100 yards into the trees. The couple said the male was 8 or 9 feet tall. Both creatures were covered with long hair, reddish-brown at the ends and lighter near the body. Both stood very straight. The eyes of the male, which peered into the car, were black with no whites showing. The female did not turn her head towards them as the two crossed the road, so the couple did not see her eyes. Comment: This is the only report on file that clearly demonstrates Sasquatch affection. Odd creature spotted in local canyon. Fall River Mills, California, May 11, 1947. Russ Tribble and his wife, both residents, stated they saw two unusual creatures in the forest south of town. The couple were fishing in a canyon and saw the oddities walking along the river, gathering and eating fish and reeds. They were hair-covered, stooped, very heavily built, and had a strong odor. The couple later inspected the area where the creatures had been and found footprints that measured 17.5 inches and 14 inches in length. The prints sank 3/4 of an inch into the soil. Tribble noted that his own prints sank only 1/3 as far. Pilot spots unusual creature in the Blue Mountains. Blue Mountains, Eastern Oregon, Union County, June 1947. Bill White, a crop duster of Pendleton, Oregon, tells of something strange in the Blue Mountains. While returning home from a job, he saw some sort of creature standing on two legs atop a mountain. The creature turned its head and watched the plane go by. Here's the story in White's own words, which he related many years later. In 1947, I had not heard the stories about Bigfoot, so I did not at first suspect that I had seen him. At the time of the sighting, I was flying a light airplane and skimming along an open mountaintop in the Blue Mountains of Eastern Oregon. I was in the beginnings of my crop dusting business, an idea that was still new at the time. The farmers had gone into the pea growing business in a big way, and they were plagued with pea weevil. On that particular day, I was working out of Joseph, Oregon, and was on my way back home to Pendleton. I liked to skim along as low as possible just to watch the wildlife. Mount Emily was on my way, and there was a long open ridge with a jeep trail along it. That is where I saw the critter that I had not heard of before. Off to my left a short distance, I saw what I thought was a large bear, having nothing else to compare it to. But what was puzzling was it was standing straight up on 2 feet. As I flew by, he turned his head and watched me go. I didn't circle and look at him as I usually would, because I was short of fuel and worried about getting to the old Pendleton airport. If I have even heard of Bigfoot, I would have circled for another look. Makes no mind that I might have had to walk a mile or so home. There are farm fields aplenty, all of which are landing fields if needed. The next few days I told anyone who would listen, they were few, about this silly old bear standing up and watching me. Over the years, the more descriptions I see and hear of the old boy's appearance, the more sure I am that the guy I saw was the real McCoy. When they describe how he stands with the broad shoulders, the long arms and the short neck, etc., the better I can look back and see him standing there. That was no bear. Comment: Bill White was a good friend and business partner of the late, well-known Kenneth Arnold, the pilot who, coincidentally, in the same June of 1947, spotted 9 unidentified flying objects over Mount Rainier. His sighting and report eventually set off the Project Blue Book initiative. It was also Kenneth who first coined the phrase flying saucers.